I am feeling things. I am feeling a lot of things this morning, and I don't know if I'm going to post this, but this helps me to express them and just let stuff through. It may seem counterintuitive, but speaking out loud actually helps me get out of my head so that emotions can stop being analyzed quite so much and just felt. And then as they're being examined, perhaps clarity around them arises, but it's not even really the point. The point is just to feel them. And I am a habitual analyzer. This mind has a great tendency to overthink and analyze constantly, and it just decided from an early age. I don't know exactly how this was learned. It doesn't really matter. It happened that feeling emotions was not safe, and so they have been shut down for a long time. And most of what this whole journey is with this channel is documenting the process of reintegrating emotion. Yes, I've been to therapy. I was in therapy for 13 years, on and off, not 100% consistent that whole time, but I have had 7 or 8 different therapists. I've done, I don't know how many hours, probably at least like a year's worth of hours of therapy, thousands of hours. And I've taken a lot of medication, and I reached a point where it didn't make sense anymore. And now I'm just doing this. I journal prolifically, constantly, and I record these videos to try to talk to myself and process emotion. Here's some of it that I would like to let through. If the tears want to come, I would like for them to come. I like crying, actually. I know that about myself. It feels good. It's actually quite a nice thing to cry. And sometimes it's readily available, and sometimes it just isn't. But there's a huge amount of fear. There's a tremendous amount of fear. Fear of doing it wrong. Fear of doing it wrong. And I'm not going to unpack those words immediately. I'm just going to say the words that are with this. Fear of disappointing. Fear of disappointing, fear of hurting, fear of upsetting. Upsetting and the disappointing happens unconsciously, or in a way that is uncontrollable, because there's been a hyper awareness from a very early age. I know this isn't unusual. emotions than others, which really isn't fair to anybody. For a person to feel so personally responsible for the emotions of others that they try to control them. That's just a different kind of manipulation. I recognize that. People-pleasing ultimately is a different kind of manipulation, and it does still come from a place of feeling unsafe. If I learned to feel unsafe with emotions, and I don't know, again, if it was, if it started with feeling unsafe with my emotions or feeling unsafe around others' emotions. I don't know. But it doesn't exactly matter at that point. It's all emotion. There's a trigger within me, there's a conditioning within the mind that says emotion, particularly negative emotion, particularly strong negative emotion, is not safe. And it doesn't matter then if the instance of it is within me or within someone else, because it's a shared experience either way. So it seeks to change strong negative emotion. It wants to try to change it in any way that it can. If that's covering it up, if that's sort of smothering it and denying it, if that's seeking to repair it and mollify, whatever it is, it wants to change it because it feels tremendously unsafe. And so there's this narrative, this running narrative in me that I am a disappointing person. That I disappoint people, which is a form of hurting, is what it says, and that it's something that I am inflicting. And at that point, it kind of oscillates between, is it happening fully unconsciously, or is it happening on purpose? Am I doing it on purpose in a way that I won't admit to or can't see? Again, that doesn't really matter. It's that I am responsible for it. It is this feeling that I am doing something bad. I am, and apparently uncontrollably, because whether or not it is something, if it's something that I'm totally unconscious of, then it feels like, something is happening that I'm unaware of in myself. If I am just disappointing people and not recognizing that this is what's happening, if I'm like hurting people without knowing it, that's a very scary feeling. That feels like I can't trust myself then. That I can't trust myself. If I am hurting people without knowing it, then I can't trust myself. That breeds a deep level of self-doubt. Or if I am, if this is something that I am able to stop, and yet I'm just not stopping it, then what's wrong with me? Why do I not feel this motivation or seem to have this ability to stop disappointing people? And so then there's a furthering, just a deepening of the feeling of shame and brokenness, kind of either way. It's effectively the same, that there is something uncontrollably incorrect about me, and either I am unable or unwilling to fix it, and both feel bad. Both feel bad. And I recognize this is a narrative. I do see that. At this point, it's strong. I'm not trying to challenge it. I'm examining it. I'm wanting to hear it. I'm wanting to feel it. I'm wanting to feel the feelings that this narrative creates. And I'm wanting to give it voice. I am wanting to say exactly what the mind is saying. Just to tell this story. Just to get it out. It has been reinforced by society generally. It was specifically reinforced. It's specifically reinforced, I think, by other people who have this narrative unconsciously. Once it becomes conscious, I think we're actually able to catch it a lot more easily in other people, as well as ourselves, but most easily in other people. It's always easier to see the mind at work and ego and narratives and all of this confusing stuff when it's happening in someone else. It's easier. It's easier to have that space and that distance, and you can see and recognize, oh, this is something that happens in me. And so I know what it is when I see it in you. I can relate to this, and I know it's a story, and I have the choice not to invalidate your emotions that are taking place as you are telling yourself this story, but I'm not going to validate the story. I'm not going to tell the story to you and say that it's true. I might say the words of it so that you can hear them if you're having a hard time hearing what you're saying to yourself, but I'm not going to agree with them. But I did have this story reinforced for me, especially in the last relationship that I had. The longest relationship, 10 years. It was, very close. We lived together pretty much the whole time, and this is not an attempt to blame that person. That person has suffered tremendously, and I've talked about this before. They have lived a very, very, very challenging existence. There's a lot of pain there, and a lot of difficulty, and a lot of suffering, and behaviors that were learned as survival mechanisms that kind of took over. And I'm aware that is happening in me too. That's what this is. This was a sort of survival mechanism, to be hyper aware of the emotions of other people because they didn't feel safe. Because somewhere in there started the story of strong negative emotions are dangerous. And that's kind of where it all bloomed from. And so I have the awareness now to recognize, at least, that this story is happening in me, and I don't want it to drive my behavior. But I can't, it's got a lot of momentum. It is practiced, and anything that we try to resist, that we try to interfere with, because interference is resistance, anything we're trying to change, we're trying to control, it has the opposite effect. So all I can do is, this is true with like all observation of the mind and of emotions, is it's a hands-off process. All I can do is see it and acknowledge that I'm seeing it and acknowledge that it's happening, and that's really it. Observation means no manipulation, no interference. And that is a very different experience for me as a person who grew up monitoring their thoughts and emotions and sort of policing them at all times. So I'm used to observing, in a way. I am used to paying attention to them, but not doing nothing about them. I'm used to having an internal reaction to my own reactions. I have forever lived in this like nested place of what I would call self-consciousness, but not actually awareness. Where I was conscious, I was seeing myself, but I wasn't aware in the sense that I wasn't being the awareness. I was still being that self, And it's the self that tries to police itself. It's the self that feels threatened by these experiences. It's the self that feels endangered by powerful negative emotions, by painful emotions. And so now I'm watching the self that is watching the self, if that makes sense. It's finally trying to be in this place that is not a self, but that is aware of the story of self happening, and the mind-boggling way that self can split into so many different components that are grappling with itself. It's got, it's chasing its own tail. It's got a hand around its own neck and is throttling itself, and at once is screaming, "Why are you like this?" and at the same time is saying, "Why are you so upset with me?" That's all the same self. That is all the mind playing all of these roles, and it's crazy. It's wild to actually witness. But this is something that I still struggle with, is remaining as the neutral observer, which doesn't mean feeling neutral. This has taken a long time for me to understand. Remaining neutral doesn't mean the feelings all instantly neutralize. Maybe at some point, I don't know, but that's not where I'm at. I'm just being honest. Remaining neutral right now still means there's a lot of stuff moving through. There is a lot. Ego is very much alive. The stories are very much alive. There's a lot of painful emotion that has not been felt fully. And so it comes up regularly, and it tries to create more. And all that I am doing is trying not to create more of the painful emotion, which means not identifying with the judgment of it, but simply observing when the judgment of it happens and actually feeling the feelings of judgment. Not identifying with shame, but not denying it either, and not trying to change it, but actually just feeling that feeling as it is happening. Anger is a big one for me, because that maybe is the number one thing that I learned, in whatever way that I learned, was dangerous. And so feeling the feelings of anger without following them, without repressing them, just letting them be there and experiencing the sensation of anger. It's not easy. It does feel like it goes against some sort of instinct. It feels dangerous. Of course, there's an underlying narrative that all of these strong, painful, negative emotions are dangerous. They're bad. They're wrong. They're whatever. They're capable of causing harm. They will cause harm. That story is old, and it's been repeated thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And not just in me, in the collective. This story that we uncontrollably harm each other. It's a terrifying story. It's compelling, clearly. And it breeds a continuous mistrust of you, of yourself, of your being. It just, you feel like you can't trust any part of you, and And then you must be on edge all the time, and you must be policing. And if you're policing yourself, you're certainly policing other people. And then that's where all of this judgment is happening, this continuous policing of emotion and what your motivation was. And that is not the same thing as neutral observation, which is not making statements about what it's observing. It is just observing. If it makes any statement, it is as plainly put as possible, this is what I see, and it's not an interpretation. It is just, this is what I see in front of me. It is the removal of all interpretation. This is all that I can really say is happening. I see that there's pain. It seems that there may be a story that's being told. And I'm not saying anything about those things. This is just what I see. And then to really just be quiet, to say nothing more than that, whether it is to another person or in yourself. To just not add to this story, to not create more problems, as Eckhart Tolle might put it, to just see what's here. And in not seeing it as a problem, but seeing that it's happening, and maybe seeing in yourself if the story of a problem is taking place, okay, but you're not identifying with that, you're just noticing that. You're noticing, okay, if it feels like there's a triggering happening in me, and the mind wants to say some things about that, and it wants to make it a big deal, and it wants to make it a problem, and I'm not saying anything about it wanting that. That's just what I'm noticing. The mind will keep talking. The mind will start, shaming itself, and then it'll get angry at itself for shaming itself, and then it'll project that anger outward, and then it'll feel shame again, and it just, it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle, and all you can do is not add to it. You cannot stop it. Trying to stop it is adding to it. So you can't stop it. All you can do is see it. All you can do is sit there and watch. And it's not easy. It hurts. It's painful to witness and experience, but it just has to happen. It's been built up for so long. It doesn't mean anything. It's not like a bad thing. It is a natural thing. That's something that the mind struggles with, is that all of this ultimately is natural. It calls itself unnatural. It calls itself wrong, like it is out of place, like it didn't somehow also emerge from the same life that everything emerged from. It exists. It would not exist if it were not a part of life, of being, of the very same stuff as everything else. It's not out of place. It's this uniquely confused component, but it belongs as much as anything else. And to just to witness it and witness the stories without either dramatization or denial, without adding or subtracting from them, without suppressing them or fueling the flames, just watching them happen. And very often it feels like, because you're not putting out this fire, it's getting bigger. Because it does get bigger, but also it's burning itself out. It has to burn. It has to get this hot with you not trying to control it, it needs to just burn up the fuel that's here. Because when you try to control it, it's just going to find other fuel. It's just that the fuel needs to be burnt up. If you're keeping it from burning the fuel by controlling it, then another fire is going to start. That's the feeling. Anyway, this needs to be felt. I'm neither denying nor accepting the story, the narration of the disappointing self that is unable or unwilling to stop hurting people. That's the story. I'm just listening to that story. I'm just hearing it being told, and I am feeling the emotions that it conjures. And that's it. I'm not denying it, and I'm not approving it, agreeing with it. I am approving of the happening of this moment. I am approving of the telling of story in this moment and the conjuration of emotion. And that doesn't mean that I'm in league with it. But denial of it just keeps it alive. It just puts it into a kind of stasis. It's just cryo-frozen to thaw and come out at another point. So it needs to happen. This story, this energy moving through, this movement of the mind, this expression of the mind, I do want this to happen. I want this to be felt. I suppose that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say, and I am at my destination, so I really recommend actually this talking out loud and maybe even recording yourself, whether you post it or not. If you are a person who, like me, has a difficult time letting emotion through, and it doesn't matter why, if that's your experience, if you find it challenging to tap into emotion and let it through in this neutral, observational way, I think a lot of people do, I think this helps. I think this is a way to tap into it. You're giving a story a literal voice. And for me, I'm listening now. Instead of being absorbed up here and talking with myself up here, I'm listening to the voice. I am hearing what it's saying. And because I'm hearing, I'm feeling. I'm in the sensing mode. I'm in the receiving mode. If you turn on one active receiving state, you've triggered all of it. It's just the shift from the projection to the receiving. So because I want to faithfully articulate what I am hearing, I'm now actually hearing it and listening and saying it out loud. And as I say it out loud, I can hear it being said, and I receive it all in a different way that feels, there's just more space. There's just more space when this happens. And I understand that this is part of the value of talk therapy. And that's a wonderful thing. I just also feel that this is a way to tap into this space. And especially, I think a lot of people who are having these experiences, they don't have another space for this. it's incredibly challenging to feel safe enough to do this with another human being. And that's just what it is. But this can help introduce us to that and learn to feel safe in ourselves expressing what's being felt. And I do practice this with my partner, my wife. And the only reason I'm able to practice this with her is because I started here. And it's still terrifying. It's still fucking terrifying. And I still do this because time constraints and other things, and there's still fear. But that's more stuff that I'm just acknowledging and witnessing in myself, wanting to be more vulnerable with her. There's not an end to that process, by the way, which is what makes it so scary, is every time you reach like a new degree of vulnerability, you go, wow, that was scary, I feel so great. And then there's another one, and then there's another one. And you're like, I thought I did this. I thought I was as scared as I could feel. But that was just one moment. That was just one time. It's gonna happen again and again. But it's yeah. This is a practice. And I think this helps. And that's it. That's all I got. I'm gonna go inside now. But I love you. Everything is okay. Everything is safe. Take it easy.